I also just don't buy, like, imagine yourself at MSI today. Do you really think they're drafting one of these Draven comps and Kazi just carrying the whole game against some fucking LPL team? No, that's not happening, is it? Like that, you can even just wipe that off the board immediately. It ain't happening.
Yeah, I think they would. I think they would have a very hard time against some of the top, Korean and Chinese teams, which is not a shocking statement, but I think it is more a vote of confidence within G2. I do think G2, depending on the team, could match up very badly. As we move to the discussion of G2, spoiler, guys.
The obvious one that would be a problem for G2 is a team that has good laners and strong jungler, like strong invading jungler. I'd like to see that. I'd like to actually see a game where the Yike guy starts with 2 lanes behind and he's getting invaded and having his shit pushed in by like Roman jungler in mid. Like, just throw me that game, because here's the difference, guys. That is probably Jankos's best strength as a jungler. He is fucking unbelievable at when he's like invaded, when he's behind, when he's working with like limited resort. That's probably what he was the king at. Whereas the point with the Yike guy is no one realistically this split beyond like maybe once or twice in the group, not even the group, the round robin at the beginning, was ever able to do that to the Yike guy. The rest of the game, he was just living the fucking dream most of the time. That's why he was able to pick anything he wanted in the jungle.
Also, a lot of these teams will react better to some of the level 1 plays that G2 makes. Yep. They may not get so flustered, or they may be able to read them quicker and do some counters. It appears that, at least in terms of the jungling, we're moving towards a less gank focus. They're trying to change the jungle right now. If you guys have seen some of the patch previews, where they have removed the extra durability from counter jungling, which is a change that I fucking hated at the start of this season. And they're also trying to increase gold on camps, and in an attempt to stop kind of the early spam ganking that's been going on in the jungle recently, and also increase viability of counter jungling and counter pathing. Jungle has not been the most complicated role this split, because counter jungling has objectively been worse, and proper pathing and farming junglers have not really been a big part of the meta. So I wonder how that's going to affect Yike as well, because if we return to the way, it's not going to be quite as lucrative to farm jungle as it was last year. They've only reverted about 50% of the gold, it seems, back into the jungle. But if we start to see more advanced pathing, then a rookie player might struggle a bit more. And especially a rookie player being an unknown quantity at an international event too is a big concern. But honestly, Thorin, my biggest concern is actually Broken Blade. He didn't look great.
He just hasn't done it internationally yet, has he? Remember, also, people forget he was on that TSM 06 as well. Like, generally, like, it just hasn't been it at the international tournaments. He's been underwhelming. By the way, there was some info I saw that I don't know if you noticed this, because I think it was on Best Damn League Show, where we had, I think it was Grabs who talked about this, or maybe it was Peter Dunn. I think it was Peter Dunn, actually. He said that this G2, is the best scrim team in Europe ever. And then if you saw Remain, after they won the finals, did a picture where he showed on the board that not only were they wrecking everyone in scrims with like 75% win rate or something, but they were wrecking them so much that almost every team in the league was starting to cancel scrims against them. So now they started tracking people canceling. That's what the whiteboard was showing you, how many times people had cancelled.
Right.
And the joke was some of the bad teams were just cancelling every time, because essentially the premise was that means G2 was so far ahead in scrims that teams were feeling like this is actually a waste of our time to scrim, and we're not even sort of getting anything out the game. Like, that's pretty big, because if people don't know, past G2 teams, people always said like people like Caps and stuff fuck around or Mickey X instant thing, but it's all like, it's actually, it just implies this team all around is just a juggernaut. Maybe they are just unbeatable.
Yeah, I think, but the problem is I think they have been unbeatable. I mean, they looked unbeatable in the LEC in terms of their playoff run, comfortable playing from ahead, dominant when playing from ahead, comfortable playing from behind, able to find those win conditions and exploit their opponents. But I get worried because I don't think they've played against the super good teams in the world, obviously. And you can only get so good unless you have proper practice partners who are punishing your mistakes. And I think when we see things like Broken Blade's laning performance versus Chasey in this series, Chasey is good, but Chasey isn't Zeus good, guys. He's not 369 good. And these are the players that he is likely to encounter at MSI. And those teams are very, very capable of playing through bot lane and completely smashing you through top lane. If you guys watched Zeus's performance in his 2 best of 3s this past week, Zeus probably had his best week of the split this last week. It was fucking disgusting how good he was. And I just don't think that G2 is going to be able to overcome that. Now, spoilers, guys. My power rankings for this week, which we're releasing, do have G2 at 9th place. I am not saying, G2 fans, that this is not a very good team. I do believe they are a very good team. They have real strengths. They have a ton of weird flex picks that can surprise opponents. Where's the Gragas going, right? Where's the Kled going? These are all, where's the Karma going at times, right? These are all very good picks for them. That they can use to their advantage. They are very well coached by Dylan Falco, and they have huge champion pools, right? Their bot lane looks really good. They play unexpected things in the bot lane. They play Jarvan support. They all in you. We know Hansama is a great lane dominant player. They play the Draven super well. So they can actually put a lot of kill pressure in bot and play through bot. Caps, when he's on form, is an absolute world-class player. We are now at the phase.
Looks like he has an infinite champion pool now as well. He just plays anything now, mate. He does whatever he wants.
It is not an insult to G2 to start having the conversation about how do they do against the best teams in the world. That is not an insult to G2 when we say they may come up short, because the fact that we're able to have these conversations is actually the best sign, G2 fans. It is the best sign for you, because we're not just saying that they might automatically get rolled. We have to actually discuss it with a little more nuance, and they are so far ahead of the rest of Europe that their only real competition is now in Asia. And that's a good thing. And it's not even like a lot of the mid-table teams I think they can beat. I think they can beat a lot of the mid-table, Chinese and Korean teams. Unfortunately, when they go to MSI, they're only going to encounter the 2 top teams from those regions, right? And they may not be good enough to deal with that.
Well, here's the big problem.
Upset, but
if we want to segue a little bit to contrasting them directly with the Asian teams, the most obvious reason they are in trouble goes like this, Monty. Right? So there's going to be 2 LPL teams and 2 LCK teams, right? Here's how it will go when the LPL teams come, guys. They have the monster laners and junglers. They have the craziest talent in the world. So pick whoever you think the best players are on G2. Do you like Hansama? He's nothing compared to Ruler, mate. Do you like fucking... Oh, you love Caps, don't you? He's mega, and he's not rookie or night. I'll tell you that right now. So there's those players. So already your leads are gone. Those laning leads are gone. That's gone. Then if we go to LCK, the 2 LCK teams probably have the best macro in the entire world right now. If there's any team was built to beat the G2 snowball, it's going to be those LCK teams. They also, by the way, have some very good individual lanes, but they're just the best macro. T1 has there's just probably the best team, full stop. But Gen G, if you haven't watched them, have way better macro than you're expecting. It's way better than last year's team, I even think. They're way less formulaic. So to me, they're still going to be a big underdog against these teams. They just are.
Yeah, it's just rough. But do I think they could take games? Do I think potentially they could, on a very good day for them and a very bad day, take a series? I've seen JDG play pretty badly, even though they have a lot of potential. I don't think they're going to do that at an international event when all the players are highly motivated. There's a lot of games in the LPL that just don't fucking matter, and so teams are not going to be super motivated. We've seen Gen G collapse internationally. I've seen that. So I know Gen G can have a bad international tournament and not do well. And if G2's in top form, that's certainly on the table. Could they beat teams that they will never play? That's the problem. They're never going. Unfortunately, we're never going to get to see them play Live Sandbox. We're never going to get to see them play Weibo. We never get to see them play D+, probably, if these teams don't go to MSI. And these are, I believe, more winnable matches for G2. Maybe at Worlds, we will get something like that. But I think also we should discuss what Grabs tweeted that I also tweeted about, which is that why not just sign 5 scrubs at LEC minimum salary and then send G2 to Korea, or, well, I mean, you send them to Korea to scrim against the Asian teams because you're not going to send them to China because it's a lot harder to do that, and also worse. But what do you think about this idea? Because
basically do what CLG did in season 4.
Just fuck off for spring. They've already qualified for MSI.
Like Monty's premise is essentially, since you've qualified for MSI, why not just put the fucking subs into play LEC, and in the meantime, you just go and get ready for MSI in Korea and power up for a month like some fucking hyperbolic time chamber from Dragon Ball Z where you're just playing against them, which would be the dream, right? The problem is, Monty, the actual format incentivizes that. That's why I think, here's one thing we can loop back in, because we've discussed this topic many times in the past. The silliest part of the new LEC format is that, like, you never actually get what you ask for with Riot. It's like trying to do a fucking pact with a demon, Monty. You have to be super particular about the exact wordage of what you're asking for, and be certain that you're actually wanting that, because obviously the joke is like, you say like, I want to have like legs like when I was young, and then they give you like legs of a 3-year-old kid, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, well, you better be careful now. You did a deal. So like, what Riot gives you is, we ask them like, can we have like more tournaments? Yeah, sure. But then what I'll do is I'll give you a tournament, but it's not allowed to be a real tournament with a crowd in a stadium. Like, but whoa, why not? Why can't I have that? Well, you never asked for that. You just asked for more tournaments. I gave you more tournaments. So similarly, then you say to them, well, obviously I don't want it to be, we're only some accounts for Worlds. So like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, but you also didn't want only the first split to count. So what I'll do is I'll make some splits not count. Like, why would you do that? But they do. So in this way, you actually, as you say, there's no incentive for G2 to actually play in this split. They're already definitely in the summer one, which is the big important one. Like, what's the point? Like, they've actually sort of ruined the prestige of the league, mate.
It is a bet, because you do get points to qualify for Worlds by participating in spring. But if you win winter and you do very well, place top 2 in summer, then you will probably have enough world qualification.
Yeah, you know this. The way a team thinks in modern league isn't like that, though. Me and you can think like that because we'll look at the whole calendar. The way they would think goes like this, Monty. If we're not actually good enough to win in summer, we're never going to win Worlds anyway, so who gives a shit? That's what they would say. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that the situation is quite interesting, because you do have to balance the financial incentives of the team as well. Obviously, the sponsors for G2 pay for them to be visible. But I do think that there is a way to actually get more visibility, weirdly, by doing this, because the docu-series that you would create out of G2 being in Korea and boot camping might be actually more valuable than just seeing some logos on a broadcast, because you could do better sponsor integration. And frankly, who among us would not watch that docu-series of G2 fucking off at like, it would be very interesting to see how they were doing and what was going on over the course of the spring split while they were off, in the hyperbolic time chamber in Korea trying to get better in order for MSI. The anticipation would be huge. You'd also have to do well at MSI, which again might be challenging considering that there are now 2 teams for both Korea and China are going, and the competition does look really tough, like really tough. I don't think even if G2 does this, that it means that they would really have a shot at winning MSI, but they might be able to make semis. That's like a possibility, I guess.
2 things. One, let's be real. In case you're a fan out there wondering by how Monty phrased that, there's no universe they're actually doing this, by the way. Like, it's actually mad that CLG even tried that all those years ago, because it had so many potential chances to look silly like it did, and then for people to fucking meme on you. And then secondly, also, by the way, I think much like the CLG case, and even more so, Riot would do everything they could to fuck this move up and sabotage it and stop it happening.
I imagine that Riot changed the rules after we did it, because what happened when CLG did it was I realized that the rules couldn't punish me for making this decision. And that they were incredibly angry about it. But they wrote the stupid rules, so that's on them. And I would imagine that they changed the rules, and especially with franchising, to try and make sure this wouldn't happen. But the fact, here's the thing, guys. It's not going to happen. It would be very interesting. But here's the broader point. The fact that we are having this conversation is just proof that people don't want a regional system. What they want is for G2 to actually have real competition with a very good team against the best teams in the world, which would allow them to improve and maybe eventually compete for a title. This is what happens when you have a truly blended circuit, right? It happens in CSGO. It happened in Overwatch. We know when you put all the best players into one pool that the talent tends to even out, because the practice environments tend to be much better and much more competitive. What we need is, again, what I've been championing, which is the Super League of 20 teams from all over the world that can incorporate all these players, because otherwise all we're doing is just feverishly hoping, like the source of excitement around Grabs' tweet comes from the fact that people really want G2 to do well internationally, but they know that it cannot happen in the current system. They cannot get the practice that they require to be a truly world-class team. It's just not going to happen. Like the miracle runs of Europe are over, and even those miracle runs ended with very one-sided like stomp world finals, guys. Those were not fun finals. They were not close to being the best team.
The other thing I would also say as well is like, the reason why Grabs knows that you need to do this approach where you have like actual proper like ramp up time is, remember, he was the coach of the greatest European team probably ever, the G2 2019, 2020 super team. And remember, everyone forgets this story because for the year, it's true, the only best of 5 they lost was the World's Finals, and they were going to be the team. I mean, they were the team of the year. I don't give a fuck what the esports awards is. They lost 1 BO5 the whole year. They won MSI. Shut the fuck up. Like they were the team of the year, but obviously they didn't complete like the full fucking Grand Slam, right? What people forget is G2 themselves, if you ever talk to them, they said like, dude, we should have even been done before that World's ended. Like they said, there's a true story. They lost something like 21 out of 22 games against Damwon before they played them in the quarters. Against SKT, they've been getting their ass handed to them. And then on the other side of the bracket, they already knew FPX mauls us every time we play them in scrims. So even the greatest team of all time went to what was their best Worlds ever and had a terrible time in the scrim sessions and didn't have enough time to get it together. It's just, luckily for us, they were the most goated fucking composure team of all time in the server. And actually, think how bizarre this is, guys. Managed to like out composure better Koreans. That's the greatest outlier you're ever going to get. You're not going to get that.
Yes.
Like, even though Caps is still there, this ain't that G2, mate. This is a different type of a team.
Yeah, use your brain and think about this, guys. The coach of that team, the team that you are citing as proof that this run could be possible again, that same guy who lived through this and coached the team, he is telling you it isn't possible. Okay, that is what he is implying. He is saying that the best thing that this team can do, who has been having amazing scrim performances, that looks head and shoulders above the best in Europe, he is literally saying his opinion is that they should fuck off for an entire split, practice in Korea, because that will make them the best. So whatever you guys are thinking with your pea brains about what is the best scrim environment for these teams or the possibility of another miracle run, Grabs knows it's never going to happen again. The odds are astronomical against it happening again. Also, Korea looks a lot better than it did during that time period is another big factor.
I mean, the key thing to tie it back into what I said about LCK before is the one area that Korea is the king of again, and this is a really bad sign because when they're the king of this, they don't lose in League of Legends, is fucking macro from the mid to late game. They are the absolute best. Again, they lead the world. The cutting edge is in the LCK. Like, I watch all the top LPL teams. What you watch the LPL team for is like vigor and force and power and how like fast they play. When you watch the LCK, what you ask is, have they figured out the chess match? And unfortunately, I've got bad news if you've already been watching LEC and LCS. They're way ahead. They're way ahead. Like, there's a reason why even Koreans just rave about the T1 macro. Like, they feel unbeatable when you play this team.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we can close the discussion on G2 because they are a very good team, guys. They are certainly, I think, a world-class team. They are a top 10 team in the world now, especially with the performance that we've seen. It's just a matter of how much damage can they do internationally. And the saddest thing is that if this team was in a proper league with a proper scrim environment that could make them better, maybe they could be that team. Maybe they could be challenging top 5. Maybe they could be challenging top 3. But we're never going to see it because of the system that's been implemented. And even the minds in the West that have done the best in international competition are longing for a system where this team could actually reach its potential. And to me, that's what this is actually saying. And that's the real tragedy of what the circuit is. And with the nature of a lack of international tournaments, what a lack of consistent international practice does for teams outside of Asia. The Asian teams always have a huge advantage. The Korean and Chinese teams can always scrim against each other. It just makes the pool of talent much more difficult to overcome if you do not live in a region where you can scrim these teams. So Riot, if they want Western teams to do well, can either create the Super League or they can use their many billions of dollars to enable quantum computing so we don't have to deal with the speed of light with ping and then we could have teams scrim each other no matter where they are in the world. There you go. Those are the two solutions.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.